So most of our questions that we've been getting so far deal with the issue some people take with the mainstream church focusing in on homosexuality as one of their major priorities, as opposed to focusing in on adultery, focusing in on helping the hungry, the poor. So, panelists, how do you feel, and also the picking and choosing of certain passages to follow? We talked about the picking and choosing of mixed bodies and whatnot. So, how do you feel about what are your opinions on why the church or the Jewish community is focusing in on this particular issue at this time, as opposed to helping larger communities?
Popcorn orders. Do all field the same questions, or do you know?
It's, if you have a strong opinion about it. We only have about half an hour.
Because I know you have a stack of questions. So is there
I'll go. With regards to why it is that we have a hierarchy of sin, I would stand against that. It all depends on what is it that you as a person are struggling with. As a person, I struggle with same-gender attractions. In my church, they try to support me to walk in the ways of the belief systems that I hold, which happens to be the belief systems that they hold. They don't confront me necessarily about sleeping with other women, because that's not necessarily a struggle that I have right now. So they really deal with me with the struggles that where I'm at. But with regards about picking and choosing different verses, I would say that we do that in the church also in regards to defending or affirming the practice of homosexuality. Cantor Greenblatt mentioned the verse that says that you cannot wear two different fibers. Really, that's not a great parallel, because though it does call it an abomination, the punishment is different. So it shows the degree to which the Jewish people stand against it. And even so, within Jewish priestly garments, you're allowed to have two different fibers. Nowhere in the Christian scriptures does it seem to suggest that a relaxing of the rules against homosexual practice. It's always wrong in any of the 5 different verses that are called the clobber verses. But there are prescriptions for wearing 2 different kinds of fiber as in the priestly garment. So it would allude to more being symbolic that we are to be separated within the secular world, but within the priestly world, within the religious world, we are united and we can mix. And so I wouldn't necessarily draw a parallel between Toeba in use of multi-fibers and sexual practice.
Go ahead.
Go first. Go ahead.
Well, Jewish tradition doesn't look at things as a hierarchy.
Correct.
If you are coming from a traditional perspective, there are 613 mitzvot or commandments, and they are all equal. If you are coming from a non-traditional perspective, where you are not bound by halakha, which is Jewish law, but you are in the struggle, which Israel means struggles with God, and so if you are engaged in that struggle to find meaning for yourself in the mitzvot, then it's not a pick and choosing out of convenience, it's a choosing based in the knowledge of our tradition and the context for that tradition. So if you are a halachic Jew, then any of those transgressions would be equal, and if you are not a halachic Jew, then any of them would also be equal, because you're not bound by any of those mitzvot. And the priestly issue, many of the things that were allowed for the priest were only allowed for the priest, and that was a way of separating out the priest from the rest of the people.
There also is within the Jewish tradition, the fact is that an Orthodox Jew, a strictly Orthodox Jew, will in fact not mix the fibers.
Right.
He will have shatnez. He'll have a little label that's in his suit, or the woman in her garment, that basically says that these are not mixed garments. I'd also like to, at this point, just talk about the death penalty question, because that is truly a red herring. The fact the Talmud is very, very clear that if the death penalty was ever enforced once in 70 years, that was once too many.
Right.
There are so many procedural guarantees that are set forth in terms of it, that to even suggest the death penalty in terms of the context that the Cantor did, I think is a true red herring.
I want to say I'm not quite as probably benevolent as the church overall. Whatever religious faith community we come from, I probably back to the original question as to why does mainstream churches or faith groups zero in on this. I tend to think that there's an attempt there to deny gay and lesbian and bisexual and transgendered the recognition in our society as a whole that we certainly deserve to have. And so I'm a little more skeptical on that, and I would just throw that out, that I don't think it's necessarily a theological question as much as sometimes it is a political question, and how the church as a whole relates to that. And from the biblical standpoint and the theological aspects of it, picking and choosing verses, you know, we have to be careful that we don't try to make Scripture in any context or whatever faith group we have say something now that it didn't mean then. And I think we're very, as a whole, as society, we sometimes do that. And I think there's a grave risk in doing that to all of us if we would break that.